everybody, it's your man James, Mr. Questions Treasures, back again with some more video action for you. Today is once again a jaunt into the past as we find out why it's great. And for those of you new with this, why it's great is where I take a comic book out of the past that I think is pretty awesome. I'll tell you why it's so great and why you yourself should want to check it out. And today's choice is a little bit significant for me because it was the very first time I'd ever read this series when I first seriously got into comics back in 1987. So this one's got a little personal significance for me doing this one. And again, you'll find out it's just a great story all on its own. But like to come in on this story was something very special for me. So I hope you enjoy checking it out. Before I reveal the book today, I'm going to just do my usual shill here and say, if you like what you see here, please drop a like down there. Help out the algorithms because that's always appreciated. Also, if you got any comments on the book or anything I say about it, drop some comments down below. I always want to hear what the people have to say. And, if you like what you see here, share out some links so that other people can join us and get in on the fun. And because that's always what you want to do. You want to share that good times with everyone else. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you have so you don't miss any of the content that I'm putting out around here. So with all out of the way, let's reveal the book. Of course, if you're here, you probably already saw it in the title, but it's Thor number 388. And this is like probably to me, one of the best Thor stories ever written. There's a lot of great stuff out there, guys like Walt Simonson, his classic run. But for me, like when I think of Thor, this is the story I always think of is this storyline here, which we're going to get into a minute. And like I said, it's something a little special. It's something a little significant to me. And, some great work by DeFalco and friends. Again, this is kind of like the thing that made me a fan of theirs for life was this story. So let's get on into it. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to get me off the screen. And then we're going to share the book. And here we are, Thor 383. Now, I mean, just look at this cover image. I mean, you got it's just alone against the Celestials, and you got the big figure of Thor with the giant, hand of the Celestial coming out. You got looks like ships blasting off of a planet. I mean, just this whole image just screams epic. It just screams like this is something that this is not your typical story. And I gotta say, I love the Thor battle armor. I always loved this armor. This to me is like the look Thor should have always had. He should always look like this because this is he's a warrior, and you expect warriors like wear like armor and things of that nature. And see him in this is like this is my favorite look for Thor. I even like this right up here, the Walt Simonson little ditty up here of Thor in the armor. I just love that look. So I mean, this is where I came in with Thor, and so for me, like this look is always going to be my favorite. And again, it's just a classic story. It's heroic sacrifice. It's judgment, it's danger, it's an overwhelming odds, a lost cause. I mean, it's all these things in this story. I mean, like I say, it's what I've termed a Wagnerian epic. It's because that's really what it is. There's so much in here, and this is part 2 of the 3-part story. But I'm doing this one because this to me is like the key issue of the saga. Kind of like how you see you got Star Wars: A New Hope, then Empire, and then Jedi. This is sort of the Empire part of this story, and we all know that Empire is the best Star Wars movie, so I figured why not go for the very best part. So that's what we're going to do. Let's get on into this issue here. I just peel back this cover and check it all out, and you can see here, I mean, it just opens up like an awesome shot of Thor in the armor. And I love this here. His classic phrases. Odds blood. It's as you read through this with me, I want you to imagine the voice of Robert Ridgely's Thundar. Because, as I read these books, I always imagined that voice for Thor whenever I was reading, and you're going to see why. I mean, this issue, again, above all else, this issue will spotlight why I probably feel that way, and you're going to understand. But, he talks about, many are the wondrous sights I have seen. Many are the monstrous foes I have battled. But never before have I beheld such terrifying majesty, such awesome magnificence. Nothing can compare with the limitless power of the Celestials. And just look at this image. I mean, we talk about great art and things like that, but I mean, this shot, this is what the double page splash was made for. Just like to slap you in your face and get your attention. Like, pay attention, look at this. I mean, you got I mean, the great work here with Thor on the one side, and and a lot of people said that this is sort of like Friends' love letter to John Buscema, and I can definitely see Buscema's styling right over here, like in these rocks and on Thor's figure. But it's also a love letter, I think, to Kirby, because I mean, I can see it in the look of this giant celestial, and again the Kirby crackle in the sky. I mean, it's a love letter to probably the two best artists who ever drew Thor. And I like that Friends honors them with this. And beautiful inking by Brett Breeding. I love like you get the cragginess on the rocks, but then like with the celestial here who's coming, you can see like the star pattern in his very skin or whatever, his armor, whatever that is. I love that. It's a he knows how to get each touch right. You get the Buscema side over here, and you get like the Kirby side over here, and Breeding does a great job with that. To show both sides that Friends is obviously trying to ape on here, and it's beautifully done. And we'll just hit up with this. He goes, ever grim, ever silent, they hover above the condemned planet, disdainfully ignoring the son of Odin, who is less than an insect to them. For he is Exeter, the exterminator, the destroyer of worlds, the purifier of galaxies. And Ursharem is the judge. He, the one who analyzes the dominant race of the planet, assimilates it, ponders it, and finally decides if it deserves to survive. On Pangoria, his decision is death. And just again, it's so epic. I mean, this is DeFalco, channeling Stan Lee in this dialogue here, in these captions. It's and the whole point of the story is what happens is on his way back from Asgard to Earth, Thor transports himself with his hammer, but because Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge, is no longer connected to the mortal realm, when he transports, he ends up out in airless space, and with the last bit of energy he has, he hurls himself at this planet he sees in the distance, and that's Pangoria. And this planet has been judged to be deserving of death by the Celestials. And so when Thor crash lands on the planet, the people there help him, but he doesn't realize that these people are a lot of like space pirates and unsavory types. But they sort of come to his aid, and in recognition of that, he promises to protect the planet from the Celestials. Again, and this is like something he's faced them before and lost, and he knows this. But yet, ever the hero, ever the man of honor, he has to go out and fight this unwinnable battle on behalf of these people who cannot fight it for themselves. And it's like I said, like Wagnerian epic. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. So we can see here. Here's the main guy here. Who's the main villain? I say villain, but like he's like the head guy of the planet. The lead pirate. He's monitoring all this stuff. And yet here's the girl who he's like, we have to remember to drink a hearty toast to their memory after we're in safety of deep space, because they're all planning to leave the planet before the Celestials do their thing. And the girl asks, what about Thor? He swore to protect us. He's putting his life on the line for us. And he goes, he is a fool, Mila. Nothing in a known universe can defy the will of the Celestials, but his death won't be in vain if he can delay them long enough for us to escape. You see, so this is a guy very much pragmatic type guy. He only cares about himself. He only cares about what he needs, and anyone he can use to that end, he will use. And so again, you can see there's not good types Thor is fighting for, but he doesn't realize this, because all he knows is when he was in a moment of need, they were there. And so that's where they're kind of like using his honor against him in a way. And you can see the girl not very head up about how this is going. And then, we come back to the Celestials and they begin the process. The process of purification is begun. And you can see that, again, just look at these images on this page. I mean, just the camera angles Friends chooses for all of this. And I like the second one here. You get to see the massiveness. Like you see how you saw how big Ursharem is, but yet Exeter, I mean, he's just like, a monster. I mean, talk about gods walking the earth. That's kind of what this is. And, again, the energy released as he's spreading these energy tendrils, and they completely encircle the planet, and it traps everybody, The Celestials are trying to prevent our escape. They're encasing the whole world within some kind of force barrier. So they try to blast their way through, and they can't do it. The missiles won't penetrate. Ships that hit it are destroyed. We're trapped. It was. He's right, isn't he, Pegasus? There's no escape from the judgment of the Celestials. We are all doomed, destined to die. And again, you can see, I love the facial expressions here in this panel. Hers of just like pure horror. These guys are like, unnerved. Pegasus, the leader, is sort of like just like annoyed. I just love that. Just again, great face work here with friends. Just to get the various perspectives of the characters. Just from even looking at their faces, you already know what they're thinking. You didn't have the dialogue on the page. But of course, this is Thor's book, so we have to get back to our man himself. And so Thor, as he always does, the warrior born that he is, launches himself into battle. Instinctively he knows that he must defeat Exeter, he who looms a mammoth among the stars, if his plan is to be saved. Is such a defeat even conceivable? Thor knows not. But try he will, and I love the dialogue in all this of how they get inside Thor's head without using the thought bubbles, but instead they use these captions, and it's like perhaps he thinks of the utter folly of defying such infinitely powerful creatures. Perhaps he even wonders if this will be the last time he is ever carried into battle by Mjolnir, the most sacred weapon of ancient Asgard. And perhaps for the very first time in his immortal life, the Thunder God knows a trace of fear. Not for himself, but for the planet he has sworn to protect. I mean, again, the whole heroic sacrifice of it all. He's putting his life on the line against a foe that he knows he probably has no hope of stopping. And yet he's still going to try it anyway. And so he comes up, he finally gets to the head of Exeter. And, I love this, He screams at him like this should be like a flea yelling at us before we step on it. He goes, "In the name of honor, I strike. In the name of justice, I shall triumph." Swinging his hammer faster than the mortal eye can perceive, the mighty Thor calls upon all his godly strength. And then I love it. He slammed it down. You get the kwa, and then the next page. Boom, and it's just, and I love this. So incredibly powerful, so unbelievably forceful is his blow that nearby mountaintops are instantly reduced to formless rubble, and the entire planet is rocked by its brutal reverberations. And you can see like it's taking out mountains, it's tearing down cities, just to the echo of that blow. And Thor himself is like totally taken aback by it. It's this most powerful blow, and the Celestial didn't even react to it. All it did was barely tear a hole in his armor. But then, as always, the hero that he is, he leaps in head first, as all warriors tend to do, to take the battle to the Celestial himself. He goes, "If I can reach the Celestial's unprotected head, my faithful hammer can surely render him unconscious." So he's thinking this is just a normal fight, like any other foe. But he's about to learn that's not quite the case when you're dealing with the Celestials. And as you can see right here, and again, I love this. I love the craziness of these backgrounds that Friends comes in here with to show you the inside of the Celestials. What trickery is this? Where is Celestial? Why can I not find him? Can it be possible that he doth possess no true corporeal form? See, as he's coming to understand, maybe these guys are like there's when I'm the way he's used to battle isn't going to work here. And while he's trying to figure it all out, some creatures from within attack him. I am attacked by strange nameless creatures. And again, you're going to see here in another minute why I hear the Thundar voice when I read Thor's dialogue. So they come in and start attacking him. He knocks them back. He goes, "Get back, ye denizens of darkness! Back, I say! 'Tis the god of thunder ye seek to overwhelm, the lord of the storm. Behold, the savage tempest which I have summoned to blast ye back to the Stygian slime whence ye came." I mean, just come on! How could you not hear Thundar's voice saying this? I just love that, the whole barbaric type of feel to Thor. He's a man of honor, he's a god of gods, and yet he still has that barbaric side to him, and I love that about the character. You just see again the power at his command, and yet even in the face of all this power he has, he's but a mote compared to the Celestials. I mean, that's the crazy thing. Most of us will look at Thor as like one of the most powerful beings in the universe. And yet to the Celestials, he's virtually nothing. So he goes on and he pierces a membrane. He goes, "Perhaps yon portal will take me to the prize I seek." And then he's just inundated with tons of images in his brain. He goes, "Are these mere memories of all the places where the Celestial has been? Or is his race so developed, so far beyond all others, that he's capable of existing in each locale at the exact same time? And just look at that face. I mean, look at this. I mean, again, is it any wonder I think Ron Frenz is such a great artist, right? How could you see an image like this and not become an instant fan of that artist? It just doesn't make sense to me that you wouldn't. And like I said, this is early in DeFalco and Friends run. They started out with, a story from the past, from the Secret Wars with Thor. Then they brought in Future Thor, Dargo, and then this storyline. And it's just like, talk about, making a rod for your back. How do you top stuff like this? I don't understand it, but, So once again, we go back to Pegasus and his people, and they decide they're going to attack the Celestial themselves to see if they can get them to relent that force field. And again, I love this guy. I like these thought bubbles with this guy in the background. He goes, "Has Pegasus lost his mind? We couldn't even dent their force barrier. How much damage could we possibly hope to inflict upon the Celestials themselves?" So you kind of question: is this guy losing his mind? Is he going crazy from fear? What's going on? But as we see, his ship pulls off, and she goes, "You're deserting your own fleet? Of course. This assault is only a futile gesture at best. But I'm hoping that it can distract the Celestials long enough for me to devise an effective means of escape. I don't care how many of our people must perish as long as I survive." See, and there it is. I showed you the callousness, the cold cruelty of this guy, that Thor is fighting kind of on behalf of without realizing this guy's true nature. Because, again, he sort of glad-handed Thor in the previous issue when he helped him. And so Thor thinks this is a man of honor, too. And we see here that he is definitely not. And so now you start to question yourself about the whole thing with the Celestials. They've judged the planet as unworthy and it must die. And you're thinking, maybe the Celestials are right. So Thor is fighting on the wrong side, Meanwhile, inside, Thor continues his battle with the Celestials, shall we say, immune system, because he even notes that. He goes, what manner of creatures are these? There be thousands of them, and they seem drawn to me as if I were some lethal virus 'twas their duty to expel. So he's, again, because that's probably how these Celestials see Thor, is just like a virus, a microscopic bug that needs to be purged. And again, I love this page. I love the classic 6 panel, and you can see here they overwhelm him, and you can see he says they're secreting deadly acid, which is eating through his battle armor. But even in the midst of it all, Thor never gives up. He summons the lightning and brings it down. And he goes, "Once again, my faithful hammer hath saved me. Once again, I'm in Mjolnir's debt." But the armor is damaged, so he gets rid of it. He uses his cape to bandage his wounds, and now he's ready to continue. And this I do swear, the Celestial will fall. I mean, again, never once does the determination ever leave him. He knows he's fighting a battle he probably can't win, and yet he's still determined to find victory somehow. Again, this is just one. Is this arrogance on his part? Maybe. Is it ego, or is it just a man who is so devoted and to his honor that no matter what the cause, no matter how lost it seems, you battle on. You never give in. I mean, that's what you're seeing here. And then outside you can see we see that the battle continues on with the ships. He goes, but they go outside. The vast armada of Pegasus continues its desperate barrage, attacking the Celestial with all the effectiveness of a swarm of enraged fleas pitted against the great pyramids of ancient Egypt. Again, I love the visuals that DeFalco is giving you with this, with the way he's wording things. It just gives you that epic feel. So Thor continues on, and then odds blood. Then he's suddenly wide with wonder. And what is it he sees? What has got him so shocked? Well, here it is. At last, my quest is ended. This must surely house whatever passes for this creature's brain. So here he is at the mind of the Celestial. At least so he thinks. And then while he's so busy being, awestruck at this, because he even says, he goes, it seems almost sacrilegious to destroy such a magnificent structure if it is indeed the intellectual core of such an awesome organism. And yet I must. The people of Pangoria will die if I fail to act. If only there were another way. And so he's like almost got conflicted feelings on this now. You know, he went into this with the best of intentions of honor and duty to go out and protect people who are facing a foe that they have no chance against. And yet now he's starting to see that, you know, maybe what he's doing isn't the right way to handle it. You know, if there only was another way, he doesn't want this. You know, but while that's happening, of course, you can see what happens is this monstrosity comes up behind him. And then again, classic 6 panels. Again, you just get some great action here, you know. In the end, which fate hath ordained me? Wait, is this the end which fate hath ordained for me? An ignoble death at the hand of this unliving brute? Nay, I say thee, nay. I have come too far, suffered too much. I will not fail. I mean, and look at that. Look at that shot right here. Just the eyes right here. His face is in shadow. The eyes. I mean, you know, that is dogged determination. That is take no prisoners. I will not surrender. Look, I just love that. Again, just the expressiveness Friends gets in these faces in this story. I mean, it tells the story better than the dialogue does. And so, of course, you know, he goes in. You know, the blood of Almighty Odin doth flow within my veins. The spirit of eternal Asgard doth burn within my heart. For I am the Thunderer, the Lord of the Lightning, the God of the Storm. I am Thor. You know, but you can see here it's taken its toll. He's hurt. You know, this hasn't been easy for him. So he decides, you know, if he's going to crack this dome, he has to do the one thing that he fears doing himself, because it's very terrifying. He goes, I must call forth the godly life force which flows within all Asgardians and grants us our very immortality. And I must channel it through my enchanted hammer in one great destructive blast. And so he braces the hammer with his belt of power, because he knows that the forces he's about to unleash are so great that even the hammer itself may not be able to withstand them. So he tries to protect it as much as he can. You know, this is him putting it all on, his very life essence. You know, and then, you know, we got this stuff here. We'll just, you know, with mouthing enchanted words that were ancient long before the first man walked the earth. Words so sacred that few immortals even know they exist. Thor begins the agonizing process of uniting his life force, his very essence, with the irresistible power of his mallet. The godly strength of Thor becomes one with the hammer supreme, and then I just love this. I mean, just Throom. I mean, you can see how powerful this is. I mean, you know, you got the Kirby crackle going on. I mean, you know, it's everything. You know, this is power beyond power. Like, you've never seen anything like this before. And then I love this right here. So incredibly powerful is the explosion, so indescribably destructive that even mighty Exitar is jostled by it, but only for a moment. You know, like even the Celestial feels that, like, oh, I felt that. And he did it. He cracked the dome. He was, but at what cost? And it's the hammer. You know, Mjolnir could not withstand the strain. My faithful weapon is no more. And so he gathers up the pieces because he feels it's his duty to do so. And then he hears the footsteps behind him. And then, you know, more of these creatures, but they're smaller. He goes, an army of humanoids, all determined to prevent me from reaching the shattered dome and completing the destruction of the Celestial's brain. And then I just, right here, if this is the day that destiny hath marked marked me for death, so be it. But no matter how overwhelming the odds, no matter how hopeless my cause, never will I ever surrender or yield to despair. I will fall fighting as a warrior born for the honor and the glory of Asgard. And it just, you know, I just love that shot. Just, he's all scraped up, he's all hurt and damaged, and, you know, the hammer is gone. All he has is the handle, the stick that it was on, and he's just launching himself, ready to just, you know, go at these creatures. I mean, you know, just what a cliffhanger. And then this at the very end, whatever you think happens next issue, you're wrong. Don't miss when the thunder fails. Oh my God, how can you end it here? You know, it's like, no, I can't, I gotta read I can't wait for another month for the next issue. I have to know what happens. You know, I got this same feeling here in this issue that I got when I was watching Star Trek The Next Generation, The Best of Both Worlds, Part 1. And, you had, Picard captured by the Borg and turned into a Borg. You got the Borg smashing through the Federation ships. The Enterprise is the only thing that stands between them and Earth. And, they got to use this weapon to destroy him, but it could destroy Picard too. But they couldn't save him. And so, Riker, you got that final moment with the camera and the music panning up on him, and he goes, "Mr. Worf, fire." And then it's to be continued. You're just like, no, you can't end it here. But that's exactly the effect you get here. And this is the best part of this story. You saw all the action, all the drama. The callousness of Pegasus and him. And then Thor's honor, even though it's being kind of misdirected. The threat of the Celestials, the craziness. I mean, it's like so much stuff in this issue. And yet. You got to read more. I couldn't wait for the next issue. I was so anxious to get that next issue. And, when I heard it was out, I went out and got it. And like I said, this is like the Empire Strikes Back of this trilogy. 387 to 389 is the storyline of Alone Against the Celestials. And this is the Empire Strikes Back part of that. And you can see why. I mean, everything's going wrong for Thor. Nothing is going right. Even though he's right there at what appears to be victory, it looks like it's not going to happen. The planet is doomed. The people are going to die. Thor is going to lose. All this is happening, and it seems like there's no hope. And yet, even in the face of it all, he defiantly stands, ready to battle. I mean, and that to me, that is the character of Thor. That is what he is all about. He was always about, it doesn't matter the cause. It doesn't matter, how hopeless it may seem. I'm a warrior born and I will fight to the bitterest of ends. And that's what you get in this. I mean, so like I said, Friends and DeFalco in their first several issues on the book, I mean, they just hit a benchmark that I don't think anybody since has ever been able to hit. This is classic heroism in like its most primal form. And, this is a kind of a comic that they don't really make them anymore. They don't make comics like this anymore. And, we're all the poorer for that. But, like I said, just great shots, like, the face right here, like that shadowed face, just the eyes tell you everything, the constant battle, the callousness of the Pirate King, sacrificing everybody. Like I said, this shot right here with him seeing the mind of the Celestial just overwhelming his own. I mean, just so much great stuff in here. The smacking of the hammer that basically trashes everything on the planet, but yet was not even noticed by the Celestial. Like I said, it's a type of comics they don't make anymore. Like I said, this right here, this double page. I mean, this is, it's like an end of an era of comics to me. Like it wasn't long after this, probably within the next couple of years, and like these types of comics, they didn't make them anymore. You started seeing the darkening of comics. They started seeing things get like more, dour and dangerous and things like that. This is like the last of the classic, sort of like, heroic sacrifice type of stories, like these great battles of gods and men and things of that nature. You don't really see stories like this anymore, with unvaulted heroism in the face of overwhelming and almost impossible odds. And, so for me, like this, this is like some of the best. Thor 388. I mean, if you've never been a fan of Thor, you don't even need to be. 387 to 389, just get this three-parter, the Alone Against the Celestial storyline. It's, like I said, to me, it's a high watermark that few could ever hope to match. I don't think even Friends and DeFalco themselves could top this. I mean, this is like your pinnacle. It's like this is the zenith. You don't get better than this. And that's exactly what this issue is. It's drama, it's action, it's sacrifice, it's judgment. It's all these things, and that cliffhanger ending. I mean, above all else, I mean, wow. This is what comics were made to do. This is what we read comics for. It's a story like this one. So Thor 388, Alone Against the Celestials, you got to check it out. You got to get it for yourself. You have to make yourself aware of exactly just how cool this stuff was. I mean, this is like 1987, just to me, like I said, Copper Age will always be my favorite era of comics. And a book like this is exactly the reason why I feel that way. So there you have it. Thor 388, another one in the books, another classic, another great story that, more people should be checking out. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff they talk about the Walt Simonson run, and Walt's stuff is definitely, one for the books. And there may have been a little bit of stuff after this, but like this is like one of those stories that like people just kind of overlook it for some reason, and I don't know why, because it's just so good. There's so much, and like I said, tell me if you don't hear the Robert Ridgely Thundar voice when you're reading that dialogue of Thor's. You can't not hear that. It's just that good. So definitely one you should check out, and I hope you do. I want to thank you all for joining me today. And if you got any comments about this, what do you think? Do you think Friends of DeFalco were on par with this? Were they right on the mark, or do you think I'm overblowing the whole thing? Let me know what you think down below. Also, give some likes and some subscriptions and shares out there, and subscribe yourself so you don't miss any more, because I do have some more stuff I got coming for you guys, including some things. Like I said, I'm working on some stuff, and I'm hoping to have one of those done for you by next week. So we'll have to see how this shakes out, but hopefully I will, and it's going to be a good time. And so I will be back soon with some more stuff for you. And until next time, take care.